Governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, is proposing to expand a state DNA database of criminals to include anyone convicted of any crime. Right now in New York, they collect DNA evidence only from those convicted of felonies and certain misdemeanors. But if the governor gets his way, it could include convicted graffiti artists, subway turnstile jumpers, and anybody who writes a bad check. The lawyers are back. Is there an invasion of privacy here? I mean, isn't there a limit to what the government can and should collect about each of us?
Well, you know, to become a lawyer, they take off fingerprints. In various things that are positive, they take off fingerprints and it goes in a database. And if they're looking for somebody who robbed a house or shot someone and they have
should everyone line up and go give fingerprints maybe? Maybe give a little DNA, maybe a retina scan to the federal government just in case they might need us one day. Well, a graffiti artist, that could be your son Luca.
Correct.
Someday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the one thing about DNA, though, Shepard.
So we only want the government overly involved when we want the government overly involved. But the rest of the time, we want less government. We only want the government more involved when we want IDs on people. We want to know everything about people. So the government can have a full database on each of us.
The reason, what Governor Cuomo is saying is the use of this is to identify criminals.
I know what he's saying it's for.
DNA has been an accurate tool in finding the right person, even freeing people who have been in jail for decades.
Simple question. What do you think? Think each of us should just form a queue now, maybe begin it on 47th Street, file down Broadway, come over to 6th Avenue and back up around, lined up to just hand over everything. Maybe I ought to give them my children, too.
You know we're heading in that direction. Whether it's right or wrong.
With attitudes like yours, I think maybe we certainly are. What do you think, Randy?
The whole nation.
Say a word.
What do you think?
You're doing just
what do you think?
I mean, you send an email. They know who you send it. Next day, you go online. You look for a card.
So I don't have to send an email if I don't want to send an email, do I?
But they still know who you send it to.
But not if I don't send it.
Okay.
Go.
You ain't got no. It's crazy. So it's all in the name of preventing crime. Why don't we just have 5 o'clock curfews? Why don't we just take all the cars off the road?
It's not preventing crime.
By the way,
it's to solve a crime.
Oh, it's
not to prevent crime.
Well, I think we ought to all just go right down to the courthouse and line up.
So
just line up right now.
Let's capitulate.
What if I told you 20%
here's some pee, here's some DNA, here's a hair sample.
20%.
Here's the key to my front door, so you don't have to break it down when you come on over.
What if I told you 20% of people who are convicted are wrongly convicted, and that DNA would find the right person, and an innocent person isn't going to jail?
Except the ones that we've executed for that same reason.
And that's the positive aspects of the DNA.
What, that we executed innocent people like we have?
I am 100% against the death penalty because of this reason.
I wasn't talking about whether you're for or against the death penalty. I was talking about use of DNA. They can't even use it to save a person who didn't do anything's life, yet they're going to use it, in all the best ways if we line up at the courthouse to give it to them. The graffiti artists like your son Luca.
Who's having a hard time writing his name. At 5.
He's only 27.
Look, Shepard, it's the trend. I mean, it's the trend.
It's the trend.
It's time to stop the trend.
It's Easy Pass. It's ATM machines. It's Big Brother. I mean, we're not going to put our heads in the sand. For the convenience of Easy Pass, not waiting on the line. For the convenience of an ATM, not having to go to the bank. The government knows where you are basically all the time.
But how do you equate that? When you take a DNA sample, that is your entire existence. A fingerprint is nothing. DNA is everything. How do you let the government just take that just in case?
It's a more accurate way to identify somebody.
And we're going to rely on the people like the ones who deport the girl back to Colombia to make sure that they test it properly. That's comforting.
Look, you can make the same argument about the DWI when they make you blow. I mean, the biggest thing I cross-examine is the cop. How do you know how to use this machine? What training do you have? So, yes, we do have an system. We have to trust the person who's administrating the test.
You already have a suspect. You're taking a DNA database because maybe one day down the road, maybe you'll do something again.
Unlike what Shepard's recommending, they're not saying the governor's not saying every citizen has to do this.
Just the graffiti artist.
If you are convicted of a misdemeanor, then you have to do it.
So writing a bad check, I should have a DNA sample. Wasn't the whole purpose of it because of sex crimes? I mean, when you're talking about the worst of the worst of the worst, them you want to know what they do. I write a bad check. I got to give my DNA sample. And God forbid, I was at the bank an hour before it gets held up. I'm going to get a knock on my door.
Listen, okay. Like, I can't do it in 5 seconds. You can't do it. You say we got to do, I just stop.
I had a joke and didn't insert it. Here's a